everybody, welcome back to the Nürburgring. Free Practice 2 coming up in less than 5 minutes time, and the skies decidedly darker, more grey, more threatening than they were for the first Free Practice session a few hours ago, but it is still dry. We still had no rain, and for now at least it's going to be a dry run and another run on the slick Michelin tyres for the 28 drivers that should be taking part in this 45-minute Free Practice session. The first session this morning was topped in terms of the times by the current championship leader, Mirko Bortolotti. What was a good session for Lamborghinis and Porsches in particular in the GRT machine. He finished with a time of 1 minute 26.414 seconds in that first session. Did several quick runs as well, and was the best part of 0.2 of a second quicker than Laurens Vanthoor, who finished second in the SSR Performance Porsche with a 1:26.612, and Clement Schmidt made it 2 out of 3 Lamborghinis in the top 3 for the Grasser Racing team with a 1:26.642. So there you see, after the previous session, the track being swept clear of any debris and parts of rubber, and the skies that you saw there are much greyer than they were at the start of the session. Track temperature is more or less what it was for the earlier session, so too the air temperature, just in the high teens, low 20s. It has been hovering around about that throughout the course of the day. It's quite a breeze here as well at the Nürburgring. We had outside the top 3, Philipp Enger's the best of the BMWs, finishing in 4th with a late charge for the last 5 or 6 minutes of the session to get right up near the top of the times. 5th quickest Dennis Olsen in the SSR Performance Porsche, and there was a very late charge for Nick Cassidy in the AlphaTauri AF Corsa Ferrari to round out the top 6, with Nürburgring race winner Thomas Preining 7th. Ricardo Feller was just about the last to improve, right in the dying seconds of the session to go 8th in the Sportsline Audi, ahead of his teammate Kelvin van der Linde, a race winner here last year. And 10th was his brother Sheldon van der Linde, who, after a really, really tough weekend, and he wasn't the only one, but there weren't many that had a tougher weekend than Sheldon van der Linde last time out at the Nürburgring, lost the championship lead with 0 points scored. So that was the top 10 in the earlier session. No Mercedes up in the top 10. The best of them was Lucas Stoltz in 11th place. Mercedes is about to be the first one out when they're released, because Arjun Maini was there at the front of the field. There's a good crowd here as well for a Friday practice session. Been pretty hustling as I walked around in between the 2 sessions, the paddock, and had a look at the back of the venue towards the main entrance, where there's a big motorsport themed shopping mall and restaurants over there, and the Nürburgring shop itself, a kart centre, pretty busy. Lots of people, of course, coming over to have a go at or look at the Nordschleife, which is just adjacent to us, but many of them coming over to watch the DTM here this weekend as well. So a rather cooler, calmer and cloudier day than we've been used to in recent weeks in Europe. Gone to the record temperatures for now, and the threat of rain for the weekend, a distinct possibility. I mean, lots of people saying we think we're going to get rain at least for qualifying tomorrow morning, which should be lively. So the cars will go out for 45 minutes of the session very, very shortly. Some news that has been coming through over the last few days, pretty big news involving one of the drivers involved in this year's championship fight, René Rast, the 3-time champion, currently 3rd in the points and twice a podium finisher before the summer break at the Nürburgring, announcing that after 12 years with Audi, he's going to become a BMW driver in 2023. And also then, a couple of days ago, announcing that he is going to return to Formula E, which is what he concentrated on last year, on a year away from DTM, but with a new McLaren team for 2023. So parting waves with Audi, that was announced first. Then a couple of days later, it was announced to be a BMW driver next year. Hasn't been announced in what series. That might be singular or plural. He'll race with BMW next year, but he's not going to be an Audi driver. And I'm told has already had some testing over in Spain with the team. So BMW are going to be competing in a few things next year, including the IMSA Sports Car Championship with a new hybrid V8. And then expanding the year after that into the World Endurance Championship. So we'll see whether René, when that's announced, is part of that programme, or hopefully from our point of view, back with us in the DTM. But sounds like he's going to have a busy year between that and working with McLaren as they build their programme in Formula E, which has already been a podium finisher in Erast. So that was pretty big news that's been coming through. And the other big news that's been announced related to one of our key brands in the DTM is that Audi have announced today that they are going to become, in a few years' time, involved as an engine manufacturer, a power unit supplier to Formula One, with the 2026 regulation changes that are coming through and the switch to sustainable fuels and hybrid power in Formula One. Audi are going to be in Formula One. This is Sheldon van der Linde's onboard camera as the car is wheeled into position, and then off the jacks it comes, and that is ready and raring to go. Sheldon having had all the misfortune that he suffered, including a weekend which started badly with that coming together in the first corner, the first lap of the first race at the Nürburgring. Up until then, of course, it had been an excellent season for Sheldon, which is why he had led the championship points, but he's down to second place now. Mirko Bortolotti only had 1 point finish, but that was better than most in the top 6 last time out, so he leads on 89 points. Sheldon van der Linde on 80, René Rast on 79, just 1 behind him, and then Nico Müller fourth in the standings on 62, and then we've got Lucas Auer 60 points and 5th.
So Didier is now last corner.
And there's some team radio coming through. It'll be interesting to see how the times compare with what we had this morning. A 1:26.414. Not this morning, just after lunch it was. We got going with the first free practice session. But how much more of the weekend is going to be done on slick tyres? That we won't know until we get there. And it's oh so hard to predict the weather, which is very volatile in this part of Germany. So there, some of the onboard views. That's the run through the first sequence of corners through the Yokohama S and the AMG Arena. Turns 2, 3 and 4 then lead on to a short straight down towards the Goodyear hairpin, which is where they turn off the Grand Prix circuit and make their way out through what is a very quick middle and final sector of the lap. So my name's Chris Hartley. I'm going to be talking you through all the action this weekend, including this practice session. Then qualifying tomorrow morning is coming up local time at 10:15. We'll be covering that from 10 past 10 tomorrow morning. 10:05 tomorrow morning it is, on air from 10 o'clock. And then a slightly later qualifying on Sunday at 10:15. And then, as ever, both of the races get underway at just about 1:30 with coverage starting 15 minutes or so before that. And we go into the second half of the 2022 season. 8 races done, 8 races to go. And they come thick and fast now after a 7-week break. We are pretty much running every 2 weeks now till the end of the season here at the Nürburgring. Then we go to Spa in a couple of weeks, and then to the wonderful Red Bull Ring in Spielberg in Austria before rounding out the season at Hockenheim, which has over the years been the traditional season finale venue. Of course, Nürburgring hosted the season finale last year. Well, you're looking at the number 34 Volkenhorst BMW, the blue and white machine. And if you joined us for free practice earlier, we already talked about this, but if not, and if you haven't read about it, that is history in the making, right in front of you there, because that's the youngest ever DTM driver behind the wheel of the car. Theo Overhaus has come from the DTM Trophy, in which he's also competing this weekend, because he's currently 3rd in the championship in the standings, and the German driver with a dual campaign because he's guest driving this weekend, just 17 years of age. The previous youngest driver in the championship was Pascal Wehrlein, who made his DTM debut when he was 18 back in 2013 at Hockenheim. So, pretty decent first run this morning. Marco Wittmann, he's one of his 2 teammates this weekend, has just done a personal best first sector of 44.69, 44.64, slightly quicker for Michael Grenier. These aren't mega quick lap times compared to what we had in free practice 1. A 44.0 was the best first sector time. That's a good second sector from Marco Wittmann. It's a much shorter sector through the middle of the lap, which takes in the hill at the back of the circuit from turns 6 and 7 up the back straight towards the Vidal chicane. That's the second sector, and then the last sector just takes in the run through the final sequence of corners. So the first sector is the key one, but a 1:27.5 we've got down till Grenier, and a 1:27.7 for Wittmann. So they're pretty early doors, are quite competitive, quite quick lap times. Remember, they are limited to 4 sets of tyres for the weekend. One has to be used in free practice, so they're going to be saving their best tyres for qualifying and the races. That's if it's dry, of course. Nico Muller goes absolute best in the first session with a 44.26 in the first sector, which is only a couple of tenths away from the best that we had. There is the Sol Team Bernhard Porsche team in their home race, alongside Winwood Racing, who class this as a home race as well, and HRT, Haupt Racing with the Mercedes, who are literally based just outside the circuit, 3 kilometres away. So Muller on a good lap here, and this is going to set the benchmark for free practice 2, is it? No, not quite. He tailed away a little bit in that middle sector, look, with a 22.2. Half a second quicker through the middle sector at the moment is Marco Wittmann. So Muller goes third. Lucas Stoltz is quickest at the moment with a 127.2. Tommy Preining, who we saw as early doors gone, second quickest. That's not a mega quick first sector for Marco Wittmann, though, so it will put him up the order from 7th, but I'm not sure how much further up the order he's going to go. A little bit, 5th. So 5th place for him. Good to see Felipe Fraga in the foreground as well, in the number 74 Ferrari coming through, because we barely saw anything of him in the first free practice session. We haven't got to the bottom why that was, but the car was out a few times. It went on the track. It never registered a time, though. So early doors he goes out, and Felipe Fraga 12th quickest with the 128.128. The circuit, the Nürburgring, where, yeah, of course, the team won last year with now Formula 1 racing driver Alex Albon setting victory in race 2 for the team. His only win of the 2021 season. So Ferrari ought to go well around here. This is Lucas Stoltz going off the road and over the curbs, and a bit bumpy as Nico Muller, but it's the absolute best first sector time in. It's a very good second sector. He goes into the final corner now here. The second gear right-hander at Hyundai N-Curver, and where is this going to put him? He is going to be right up there, possibly at the top of the times with this one. Yeah, fastest, 126.69 seconds. So that's nearly 3 tenths quicker than anybody else so far. Stoltz was having a bit of a rough run, dropped 3 tenths of a second through the first sector. Tommy Preining is still third. Laurens Vanthoor is 4th now. But you've only got Muller and Stoltz in the 126s. What about Marco Wittmann? He's losing too much time in the first sector, which is more or less the first half of the lap here. It's not an even split, the 3 sectors around the lap. So they're hovering around 6th place again for Marco. Although it is considerably higher than where he was earlier. He was 20th this morning with a 127.3. He's already done a 127.3 now, but this time around he's 7th, because the pace generally at the moment is a little bit slower than it was in that first free practice session. So quickest time in free practice 1 with a 126.4. We're a couple of tenths away from that at the moment. There's no personal best first sector for Nico Muller, but it's a good one, 44.19 seconds. He's very close to the best that we've had so far. Clement Schmidt, personal bests, but he's half a second down in the first sector and a tenth or so down in the second sector. But he was quick this earlier this afternoon with that third fastest time, Clements, and he goes 10th on his first run. So these they feel like qualifying type runs. And I'll do some longer runs later on. Maybe Marco Wittmann and maybe some of the Mercedes drivers were concentrating on longer runs earlier and are now setting things up for qualifying tomorrow. Taking a lot of curb there through the left and the right at turns 10 and 11. The Vidal chicane, second gear chicane, staying second for this right-hander at Hyundai Curva, which is almost but not quite a hairpin, and then it's downhill on the exit. Get on the power as early as you can over the line. He goes, but 8th place. And no better, a 127.4, about a tenth and a half slower than he'd gone before. Most of the cars on the track at the moment, it's busy. René Rast, 11th, is in the pits. Esteban Moot in 21st. Theo Uverhaus and Maximilian Gutz are the only 4 in the pits at the moment. Everybody else on track, so 24 cars on the track as Lucas Stoltz does a 127.3, which is pretty rapid, but not as quick as he has gone. And he's still second. Lucas Auer creeps up into 19th place. And Clement Schmidt, good first sector, but a little bit off it in the second sector. Well, about a second off it, actually, in that middle sector, for whatever reason. So it's not going to be a mega lap from him either. I'm not sure he's going to improve upon 11th place. And if he does, I don't think it's going to be by much. So he goes through. Ricardo Feller's had a decent-ish first sector. 44.4. But we're looking at very low 44s for the first sector to be matching anything like what we saw in the first free practice session. And again, a couple of tenths down for Ricardo Feller, looking at the graphic at the bottom of your screen for second place. Mercedes up there a bit more than they were earlier there. Max Bucher's coming to the top 10 as well. Dennis Olsen does the 1:27 sixth and third quickest. That's his best time of the session so far, but he's still nearly 4/10 of a second away from Nico Muller's best time. On board with Lukas Stoltz, absolutely thudding the curbs as he made his way through the chicane into the final right-hander at Hyundai end curve. That's the Dorint Hotel, and again on the curbs, exit there, past the commentary box on the left, over the start-finish line, and Lukas Stoltz registers another pretty good lap time, 1:27.002, which is only 18 thousandths of a second away from what he has done before. All right, Mirko Bortolotti, the championship leader, is out on track in the number 63 Lamborghini Huracan, quickest in free practice one. It's his first run, really. Arjun Miney with his first run has shot up to second place, 1:26.9. He looked pretty rapid in the first session earlier on as well. You're looking at the number 94 Porsche of Dennis Olsen, which is currently fourth quickest, and on another decent lap. Ricardo Feller is quicker than him though at the moment. Tiny bit slower through sector 1, 200 slower, but quicker through the middle sector. So Ricardo Feller looking like he's going to get his best lap of the session so far. Can he get in the top 5 or 6 with this? Yes, fifth place, 1:27.1. Pretty decent. So Muller still quickest. He's in the pits. Miney up to second. Stoltz third. Olsen in the pits in fourth. Feller's just gone fifth. Max Buch going really well in one of the single car teams, Peter Muka's team, the Muka Motorsports squad. Max super sub last year, but ending up super sub for pretty much the whole year. We were expecting Gary Paffett to take that seat, but Max came in and ended up doing the whole season all by one weekend, and was one of the drivers a little bit overlooked at the Nürburgring, where he got a podium finish, his first in DTM, amongst all the championship chaos at the head of the field. Right, Arjun Miney, he's on for the best lap of the session here, absolute best in the first 2 sectors. Just needs to get a neat run here in the Mercedes through the final turn, and the Indian driver is on course here for a mid 1:26. Gets to the line, it is a 1:26.61, and that is enough to put Arjun to the top of the timesheet by 78 thousandths of a second. Done a 1:26.618. Muller did a 1:26.696. So really good lap that from Arjun Miney, who was outside the top 10 in free practice one, but was one of the quickest Mercedes. His lap time this morning was a 1:26.996. So he's only gone 3/10 quicker, but it's the difference in this session between being 15th and first. So good effort that. Maximilian Gutz is the reigning champion with a couple of 6th place finishes last time out at the Nürburgring, put in a pretty respectable first sector time of 44.45 seconds. You see a great deal of him this morning, but there is the man aboard the number 1 car. The Bavarian is quick through sector 2 as well. Overall, he's a few tenths down, but this could be a very low 1:27, maybe slightly better if he gets the final corner right. The exit to the chicane is key as well, because it's a slight uphill run into that final corner, and no, loses a bit of time at the end with a 1:27.5 for Max. So it was looking good, but tailed away in that final sector in the Mercedes. So a bit quieter on track now, with 5 of the top 6 cars in the pits. Only Arjun Miney from the top 6 still out there. Mirko Bortolotti has come into the top 10 with a 1:27.302, but that is the best part of a second slower than he went this morning in the first free practice session. Maro Engel on a pretty good run. We saw him going way out wide coming out of turn 5 in free practice 1, and he was being followed with all the onboard cameras. So Maro not on a particularly quick lap here. David Schumacher's had a pretty good first sector. He ended up 19th, but was in the top 10 for a long time in the first session this morning. Super tight though, with only 9/10 of a second or so covering the top 22. So David Schumacher back out. As we said this morning in free practice 1, if you were watching that, or earlier this afternoon, was enjoying life in DTM, enjoying the friendly atmosphere, but still trying to get used mainly to the ABS as he goes 9th. Good lap that for Schumacher. So 9th place in the Team Winward Mercedes AMG. Owned up, put his hands up very impressively for a mistake which caused one of the incidents at the Nürburgring. Just missed his braking point at the hairpin, but it's the ABS brakes that he's taken the biggest amount of getting used to for somebody that's done single-seater racing for his career so far, and it's the FIA Formula 3 Championship for the last couple of seasons. He has got to get used to bigger, heavier cars, aerodynamics completely different, roof over his head, ABS braking. It's a big ask, but I think he's done a decent job so far. He's knocking on the door of his first top 10 finish. So you're on board with Felipe Fraga, who was largely absent from the first free practice session. Now also a race winner in the DTM. First Brazilian to get a race win in the DTM since Augusto Farfus back in 2013. So nearly 10 years since we had a Brazilian winner. But he was long overdue, wasn't it, really, for Felipe? He's had a lot of bad luck this year. Only 2 race finishes out of 8 so far, a first and a second. So they've been great race finishes. And it's good enough for 6th in the championship. But they'll all do this to a degree, but he'll, I'm sure, at some point add up all the points he could have scored when things went wrong for him this year. Non-start, 5 non-finishes. It's been a bit of a nightmare, really, but second half of the year, let's see what they can do. Certainly not out of it yet in terms of the championship, but not particularly quick so far. But is he trying to be, or is he trying a long run setup here? We'll see. 1:27.7 for him. He's on the back foot a little bit, having missed all that time earlier on this afternoon. 28 minutes to go then in the session. Arjun Maini and Nico Muller, the top 2, both in the pits. Muller's been in the pits for a while. Arjun Maini with the best Sector 1 and Sector 2 times so far in this session. Nico Muller had the edge in Sector 3. So 44.052 is the best first sector time so far. A 21.664 through Sector 2, and now a 20.723 for Sector 3, because Maro Engel, who's gone up to 3rd place already with that, has done a 1:26.930, a really good final sector. So he's just crossed the line to go 3rd quickest with a 1:26.930. That's half a tenth quicker than Lucas Stoltz, who's just left the pits and gone back out onto the track. And Dennis Olsen, who's 5th quickest, is another driver that's just gone back out onto the track. But you are looking at Lucas Auer, who's back in 18th place at the moment in the number 22 Mercedes AMG, run by Team Winward. Best time in this session, 1:27.4. Kelvin van der Linde has just improved, but only up to 14th place, so one or two of them yet to show their hand, but everybody has at least registered a few lap times so far. And it's tight again. 20 cars covered by 9/10 of a second. Half a second covers the top 8. Here's Max Boot then, back out. He's just on an outlap now. The German driver who has had a tough start to the 2022 season so far. Not been on the podium since that final weekend at the Nürburgring last year. 29-year-old from Rheinbeck in the north of Germany. Lots of GT experience for Max Boot prior to coming into the DTM last year. He was 3rd in the Intercontinental GT Challenge Championship back in 2019 and a runner-up in the Blancpain GT Series in 2017. And the year before that was the Blancpain GT Champion back in 2016. Class champion in Blancpain the year before that in 2015. He's won some big events like the Spa 24 Hours as well. He's an FIA GT3 European champion 10 years ago when he was just a teenager. So a very experienced driver. We'll see how he gets on. He's doing pretty well in this session. And a great lap from Esteban Moot, who's put himself briefly up to 4th place. It becomes 5th because Kelvin van der Linde has gone 2nd quickest. So Arjun Maini still at the top of the times with a 1:26.618, but Kelvin van der Linde strung together just a nice consistent lap there. Actually, Esteban Moot put in the best Sector 2 and Sector 3 times of the whole session, but just with a string of personal bests, just having the edge overall. It's Kelvin van der Linde to go 2nd as we look at Michael Grenier now coming through shot in the number 55 Mercedes, one of the Gripper M cars, 14th place for the Canadian so far in this session. So Arjun Maini still in the pits, fastest, 1:26.618, 20 thousandths of a second behind him is Kelvin van der Linde, who's not mega quick, but doing okay through sector 1 on this lap. Nico Muller's still in the pits, been in the pits for a while actually, setting what was the quickest time of the session back on lap 4. He's third with the 126.996, 126.777 for Tommy Preining in fourth. Esteban Moot now down to fifth place with the 126.891. So Thomas Preining, are you looking at now, is the one that's put himself up into fourth place, and absolute best first sector, very, very good second sector. This could be a top 3, top 2, maybe even fastest time. It is the fastest time for Preining, 126.462 seconds. So by a tenth and a half, he goes to the top of the times now. And, well, confidence breeds confidence, doesn't it? There's a driver who has certainly got used to life as a DTM driver over the last few rounds. It all started, really, with an impressive run in qualifying 2 rounds ago when we were in Italy. So got his first points there, Thomas Preining, after 3 consecutive non-finishes, a 4th place finish at Imola, which signalled his arrival, and he was third right until the end of that race when Mirko Bortolotti managed to come through. A bit of contact between the pair of them as well as that happened. He's got even quicker through the first sector on this lap. Thomas Preining with a 44 dead. That's really impressive. 44.002 to be precise. So he's flying. Marius Suggs had a decent first sector, and Dennis Olsen is the first driver today to break the 44-second barrier through the first sector. 43.93 seconds. So Dennis, who slipped back to 9th place in the number 94 Porsche, on for the quickest lap here potentially. He's about a tenth of a second up as it stands. So wait for him to come through. Thomas Preining might go even quicker before that, though. He crosses the line now. That's a 126.5. So 2 very good laps. Not quite as quick as the one before that. We did a 126.4, but he's done the fastest 2 laps of the session now. But for how long? Because the Porsche goes through and goes to the top of the times. Dennis Olsen with a 126.3. 126.386 seconds. And make no doubt about it, these are dummy qualifying runs that you're looking at the moment in the middle of this session. René Rast in what's going to be his last couple of months as an Audi driver after more than a decade with the team, signing for BMW next year and also signing for McLaren as a Formula E driver. And he goes 6th quickest. So 3-time champion, 6th. He got 2 third-place finishes at the Nürburgring, and he said, actually, this is quite a good tactic for winning the championship because of the success ballast. So if you finish in the top 3 in the DTM, you have to carry success ballast for the next race, and it's pretty hefty for the winner, who gets 25 kilograms of success ballast. For second place, you get 15, but for third, you only get 5. So obviously you don't score as many points. It's 25 points for a win, 18 points for second, and 15 for third. But he also is a good haul of points, as René was saying, and it doesn't kill you for the next race 5 kilograms. It doesn't make much difference. So actually, if you can keep on finishing third, you'd have a good chance of the championship. I'm sure he'd go for a win if he got a chance, but you can sort of see his point. Dennis Olsen then flying again, particularly through that first sector. Ricardo Feller is about to put a decent lap in as well, probably improving. No, not quite. 127.3. Lost out in the end, but Dennis Olsen, 126.326 seconds now. The driver that's right behind him has shaved another few hundredths of a second off as they go into the first gear. Right-hander, just about keep the cars on the track there. It's big heavy braking zone in front of the grandstand into turn 1, the Yokohama S, and the camber on the circuit sort of pulls you to the outside as well, so you have to drag the cars quickly back across to the right to take the line through the left at turn 2, through turn 3 in second, out through turn 4 onto that back straight they go, running very rapidly together. Max Buch down to 10th place at the moment with a 126.9, but on for a personal best lap, which puts him 6th. Replay of drivers pushing hard out of the final turn and kicking up their dust big time there was Marius Sugg, but he's going well. 14th place for another of the young driver in his first season of the championship. So there is Marius looking for his first points in the DTM if he can this weekend. Best results, an 11th place finish, just 1 position outside the points at the Nürburgring last time out. only 19, another teenager, and another of these rapid German drivers that come from the south of the country, from Bavaria. It's another decent lap from Dennis Olsen. This is impressive, isn't it? It's not going to be as quick as his previous best. Oh, I take it back, it's a very good end to the lap. Absolute best final sector. It's not quite as quick as his best, but he's now done 2 1:26.3s, a 1:26.4 and a 1:26.5. So if you ignore Thomas Preining, he's also done a 1:26.4. He's got the 4 best laps of the session, so 4 of his laps would have been good enough for fastest in this session, ahead of the likes of Arjun Maini, Kelvin van der Linde and Nico Muller, who's back out on track now, incidentally. So Nico, a bit of time in the pits after setting a very rapid lap early on in the session, has gone back out. Thomas Preining has come in, Kelvin van der Linde has come in, they're 2nd and 4th respectively. René Rast has just come into the pits in front of the commentary box, Esteban Moot and Felipe Fraga. So 5 of the top 10 in the pits. Clement Schmidt was in the top 10 earlier on in free practice 1, was 3rd quickest, but the pace has definitely hotted up in this second free practice session. The Lamborghini was proving to be a pretty adept car earlier on, and that's not bad either. 8th place for Clement in the Grasser Racing Team Hurricane with a 1:26.882. It's very tight. If you forget about the first 2, from Kelvin van der Linde in 3rd place down to down to Michael Grenier in 18th place. Those 16 cars are covered by half a second. It's really, really tight. And using a bit too much of the track there, right over the curbs. There were a few lap times disallowed in free practice 1 because of track limits. And I dare say there'll be a few in this session as well as they explore the limits of the track. Keep crossing over the white lines too much, you get lap times taken away. You can get penalties in the race as well. And looking at Clement Schmidt, who is really pushing on here. He's definitely exploring the limits, isn't he? But he has just done a personal best first sector, 44.18 seconds. It's 1/10 and a half down on the, or nearly 2/10 down really, on the best first sector time that we've had. But it's pretty handy as Maximilian Gutz has just gone into 7th place. So Mercedes, who were largely absent from the top 10 in free practice 1, we've got 3 of them in the top 7 now. Maini in 3rd, Buch in 6th, and Gutz in 7th place. Clement Schmidt, 6th place, improvement for him with 1:26.756 seconds. He's the quickest man on track currently, and Gutz was very close to that time with the 1:26.783 just behind. Dev Gore's just done a personal best, 1:26.9. So here he is, number 12, the American, 13th place. The thing I always like to remind people about with Dev is that he has not done many years racing compared to a lot of the other drivers around him. Not somebody who started karting when he was 5 or 6 years of age, so it's really come on this year. Podium finisher now in the DTM with that 2nd place finish at Imola a couple of rounds ago. And the 24-year-old from Oklahoma City was the DD2 karting champion in the US back in 2016. Did some Formula 4 racing or Formula 2000 racing for a season in America. Bit of Euro Formula Open racing as well. And then a season of Blancpain, bit of Toyota Racing Series, but his car racing career was really compressed into just 2 or 3 seasons, and never really getting a second season at the same sort of car. And he's coming to DTM, and really, now with the 2nd season, Dev has shown what he can do. So impressive stuff, absolute fly through that chicane he goes. Done a personal best first sector, it's a tiny bit down in the 2nd sector, but this is potentially a lap which, if he gets it right at the end, could get him up into the top 10. He only needs to find a 1/10 of a second to gain about 4 places here. So let's see if it's good enough as he crosses the line. 13th place with a 1:27.105. That's 2 quick laps there he's done. So Dennis Olsen quickest, Thomas Preining 2nd, and Arjun Maini 3rd. They're all in the pits. Kelvin van der Linde is 4th, Nico Muller is 5th, Clement Schmidt is 6th, he's in the pits. Max Buch in the pits is 7th. Maxi Gutz in 8th place, he's on track. René Rast 9th, he's in the pits, and Esteban Moot going well in the BMW in 10th place in one of 3 Volkenhorst BMWs that we got on track now. Now, in top of the times in free practice 1, what's Bortolotti going to do here? Hasn't been going for an out-and-out quick lap time yet, and he comes into the pits. So Bortolotti 22nd, perhaps running through, trying some other things out. He knows what he can do because he's got a setup that gives us a very quick lap time. He knows all about that from the first session, so maybe he's trying to try a few different setup changes out. Maybe he's trying with the team to work a longer run, but he's not going for a qualifying type run yet. But I wouldn't worry about him. 1:27.302 is the best that he's managed, and he's going to be in the pits for a while. He's put up onto the trolley and about to head to the GRT garage. That's a racing team having a fantastic season so far with their man at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Gottfried Grasser, the Austrian that runs the team. Manuel Reuter, legend of German motorsport, who took over the role as team manager this year, Le Mans winner in 1989, 1996, and an ITR champion in 1996 as well. DTM runner-up in the year 2000. That was the first time the DTM came to the Nürburgring circuit, which is very high on the list of circuits visited for DTM. It's been a mainstay, even visited twice in recent years, when we had one run a couple of years ago on the sprint circuit and one run on the Grand Prix circuit in back-to-back weekends during the COVID period. There's only Hockenheim where there have been more DTM races staged than the Nürburgring, with Norrisring third in that list, but about half as many visits to Norrisring as to Hockenheim and the Nürburgring. So it's long since been a home for the championship. We're riding on board with Felipe Fraga, who is starting to come up the order now, 11th quickest. First time we've seen him into the 1:26s, 1:26.891. Incidentally, that's exactly the same lap time that Esteban Moot set a while ago, but because the Belgian set it first, he gets 10th, and Felipe has to stay just outside the top 10 in 11th place. Not yet on a flyer. 44.77 is not particularly quick through the first sector, nor is a 22.02. And it's quite quiet on track at the moment. We've only got 7 or 8 cars on track, lots of them in the pit lane or about to rejoin on out laps. Devgore's just gone across the line in front of the commentary box, but with a slow lap, but with an absolutely clear track ahead of him. Sheldon van der Linde's looking quick, down by about half a second of the first sector, but an absolute best second sector. Personal best lap last time around. I fear he might have lost too much at the start of the lap, but there's a bit left in this BMW, so it's only 16th for now, but an absolute best middle sector. Lost half a second in the first sector, and he was only 6/10ths down, so lost most of the time in the first half of the lap. Got a bit of traffic ahead as well. The Rosberg Audi, which will be Nico Müller, won't it, just ahead of him. Now he's trying to push on, but Sheldon, certainly the quickest man out there at the moment in terms of those on track, with that 1:27.004. Kelvin van der Linde did a 1:27.2, second quickest driver out there. He's doing a slightly longer run as well now. So most of them have done between 16 and 20 laps. The driver that's done the fewest laps is Lucas Auer. He's only done 11 laps of this session. And the driver that's done the most laps of the session so far is Mirko Bortolotti, with 20, and actually 20 laps completed as well for Philip Eng. So they've been busy, I think, going for longer runs. Wouldn't be surprised if they come back out there and go for a short, quick go at a couple of qualifying type runs. And looks like Sheldon is about to abort the lap, having had to follow the 51 Team Rosberg Audi of Nico Müller all the way around that lap. So Nico on his own. You're on board with Sheldon peeling into the pit lane. Still with time to get back out if he wants to. 10.5 minutes left on the clock. Something we haven't seen for a while. Jumpers and coats in the grandstands, which are a very hot Imola, a very hot Norrisring, and a very hot summer break in the UK and all the way across Europe. Heat waves, but it's a little bit more, feels a bit more autumnal today. Still warm, still pleasant, but it's definitely not hot today. So that's Rolf Inischen. Had to miss the last round due to illness, but he was very quick at the start of the first free practice session. Others caught and went ahead of him eventually, but he's in the top half of the field here. and driver that's getting more and more experience, 44-year-old, who is a 3-time Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland class champion in the B class for the amateur drivers, and then GT racing for the last few years. Podium finisher in the Dubai 24 Hours with the team he's racing with, Grasser Racing. Mirko Bortolotti was part of that team. His brother Mark was part of the team. Christian Engelhardt raced with him when they got on the podium in 2018. He's several seasons racing with Grasser in the ADAC GT Masters Championship as well, which he went into in 2016 after several years in Porsches, and he's really concentrated on GT racing since then. Another GT expert has been this one, Michael Grenier, now having got his first points finish with a 9th place last time out at the Nürburgring. Grenier is trying to find some pace here if he can. And the 55 Mercedes, as we see the overhead view, with pretty much the track to himself. And a driver who was very impressive in the first weekend of the season at Portimao, particularly in the qualifying sessions, but it was a weekend in the end that didn't really yield much for him. We've certainly seen some pace from Michael Grenier. Second quickest in that very first qualifying session of the year. But since then, he's averaged 16th on the grid, second in qualifying 1 at Portimao, and his best since then, he's been 15th on the grid 3 times. So qualifying, I think, has been the issue for him. Race pace has generally been pretty good. He's been one of the drivers coming through the order more often than not. So Grenier goes through to complete another lap. And another one that looks like he's going for a slightly longer run here. Well, all of the top 6 are now back out on track. Olsen, Preining, Grenier, who you're seeing there in 3rd place now with a 1:26.540. Didn't do a particularly quick lap just now, but the one before was good. 4th quickest is Miney, 5th is Kelvin van der Linde, 6th is Nico Muller, 7th Clement Schmidt, 8th Maximilian Buch. Into the pits in 9th is Maximilian Gutz, and René Rast rounds out the top 10 as it stands. But Lukas Stoltz has just improved, 1:26.751, and that puts him ahead of Schmidt, Buch and Gutz. So he goes 7th, Schmidt down to 8th, Buch 9th, Gutz in 10th, and Rast pushed out of the top 10. Lawrence Van Tour with a decent looking first sector, which is the key one, the longest sector. So he might be about to charge out the order from 22nd position. It's about to go over the line. And no, still 22nd, because it was a slow final sector. Kelvin van der Linde we're watching, and that takes him to a 1:26.6. And that is, sorry, 1:27.6. 1:26.6 is his best, so second slower than his ultimate lap time. His brother Sheldon is out there as well with the onboard camera. 31 BMW, back in 17th place now. Right, very good first sector from Lukas Stoltz, 44.03 seconds. The best we've had is a 43.9 a couple of times through there, so very good start to the lap for Luca. You ride on board with the German driver now. The Mercedes AMG 6.2 litre, that lovely rumble from the V8 engine, which belts out around about 550 brake horsepower or so. Driver who last year made a couple of guest appearances in the DTM here at Nürburgring, and Lukas Stoltz second place with that in free practice too. So 1:26.432, just over a tenth behind Dennis Olsen, and 30 thousandths of a second quicker than Thomas Preining, who is demoted down to 3rd place. So Lukas Stoltz going well here. So made his debut in the DTM at the Nürburgring last year with the Team Talksport squad, the WRT squad, in a Mercedes. That was the team he raced in the GT Masters Championship for the full season last year, where he finished in the top 3, 3rd in the championship. Teammates with Maro Engel, got 6 podiums the pair together in a successful 2021 campaign. He was 3rd the year before in that championship as well, and he was the runner-up in the Blancpain Championship in 2019. So he's had a very successful last few years, Lukas Stoltz. 10 races now in the DTM. Not yet a winner, but 2 podiums he's had this year, one in Portugal, one at the Lausitz-Ring, and he's second quickest here behind Dennis Olsen. So Porsche fastest, Mercedes second, Porsche third, Mercedes fourth, Porsche fifth, Mercedes sixth. It's a very even pattern. Audi seventh, Audi 8th, Mercedes 9th, and Lamborghini in 10th place. No Ferraris in the top 10. Nick Cassidy's back in 26th place. And Felipe Fraga 16th at the moment. Albeit only a 10th of a second away from being in the top 8. While Maro Engel, absolute best middle sector. He's about 3/10 down in the first sector. But Maro, enough to go 5th place there. So Maro Engel into the top 5. So him and his former teammate from GT Masters days, Lucas Stoltz, the two on the move now. Stoltz has gone 2nd, Engel's gone 5th quickest. But Arjun Maini, who was quickest halfway through this session, as we go to the final 4 minutes or so, looking to push on here with the absolute best middle sector. It was a couple of tenths down in the first sector. So 7th place for that one with a 1:27.612. Decent lap, but not an absolutely flying lap, that. But part of it looked good. Grenier's gone into the pits. Otherwise, everybody in the top 10 is out on track at the moment. There's David Schumacher, who's slipped back down the order a little bit, but is still there in 10th place. 1:26.716 is what he's just done. So that's put him ahead of Clement Schmidt, Max Boot, Max Gutz, Rennie Rast, and a few others as well. Philip Eng improves to 14th, and Lucas Stoltz with a decent, not exceptional, but decent first sector, his best, and the absolute best middle sector. Rounds the final corner with the onboard camera. He needs to find just over a 10th of a second to beat Dennis Olsen's 1:26.326. Can he do it? 1:26, nearly, 0.353. So he's got the gap down now to 27 thousandths of a second. But Dennis Olsen's still on top, still at the top of the times in the SSR Performance Porsche. So good effort that from Lucas Stoltz. And again, he'll be confident with the fact that he's had a couple of quick laps, not just one quick lap. There he goes through. Track busy again. We've only got Maximilian Gutz and Felipe Fraga in the pits. In fact, scratch that because Felipe's just gone back out. So most of them out on track. Devgore's just come in. Mario Sugg has got all over him, Lawrence Vantour in the Porsche, but Lawrence can't find a way through at turn 1. You're on board with number 33, Rennie Rast, racking up a bit of paint on the tyres from the curbs there. And how's he doing on this lap? He's average so far. It's not flying, but there's still time yet for the 3-time champion, who is currently 17th fastest, and he stays 17th fastest with that lap time as well. Rennie Rast, who's had 85 races in the DTM now and 25 wins, 44 podiums and 21 pole positions. So more than 50% of the races that he's done, Rennie Rast has been on the podium 52% of the time, and 29% of the time, so nearly 1 in 3, he wins. Incredible record that he's got since he made his DTM debut in, well, full season debut in 2017. Did a few races in 2016, but his first full season 2017. He won the championship, won it again in 2019 and again in 2022. Missed 2021 with Formula E, and then he's up there again in this season. So his full seasons, he's either finished 1st or 2nd in the championship, and he's 3rd in the championship at the moment, despite failing to score in the opening weekend at the Portimao. Well, Mirko Bortolotti, you are looking at moving up the order. 4th place on his last lap, 1:26.494. And although it's not a personal best, that is a very good first sector, 44.01. Not very far away from the absolute best, which is 43.9. So this is another good lap from Mirko, who is looking like he could get into the top 3 with this. Not sure he's going to get the fastest time, but if it's a good final corner, no, not quite, 1:26.669. Just lost a couple of tenths on that lap, but it was still a good effort. So Olsen and Stoltz the quickest. Tommy Preining has just gone back out. There's not much time left on the clock for him to set a decent run, though, so looks like 3rd at best for him. Bortolotti 4th. Vantour climbed to 5th before he went into the pits. And Shelton van der Linde climbing to 6th place as well not long ago. Vantour is the one that's got the absolute best final sector of 20.559 seconds on the lap that put him into 5th place. He was 22nd about 3 minutes ago, but he's 5th now. That's how tight it is in DTM. What can Rolf Inischen do? And 13th is the answer. That's a decent run for Rolf. So 1:26.88. Circuit he knows. going well. Checkered flag out. The 45-minute session is complete. Checkered flag waves to Marius Sugg as he goes past the commentary box window, which is more or less opposite the start-finish line. Grenier's gone through. Miney's just gone through as well. Stoltz, Preining, both in the pits, are not going to improve on this final lap. Nick Cassidy's trying to improve, but only 23rd place when he comes across the line. But just before he came into the pits, there was another very good sector time from Luca Stoltz, so he's got a good, consistent pace, Luca. Felipe Fraga comes into the pits. Do we need to worry about the Ferraris, who were quick enough to get, as a team, a race win here last year? But 22nd and 23rd in that session. And there is one of the last runners on track, Nico Muller, who he's not going to set the world alight on this lap. Did a 44.6 in the first sector and a 22.0 in the second. So probably abort the lap, I think. So that's the end of Free Practice 2. Bit of a pit stop test and practice run for the teams now. Grasser Racing team for the Red Bull AF Corsa squad and Felipe Fraga. But if the weather permits, if it's dry tomorrow for qualifying, they'll have fresher, new Michelin tyres and the times will be even quicker. But if the forecasts are right, there could be some rain on the way across the course of the weekend, and there might be some later on today. Not far away from Spa, really, as the crow flies, and there's been some rain there at the start of the Grand Prix weekend, so we shall see what the weather does. I think it's going to be a really interesting weekend, and will we get a 9th different pole sitter from 9 qualifying sessions that we've had so far this season? We've had 8 races, 7 different race winners. Only Sheldon van der Linde has won more than one race this season, as René Rast brings his Audi into the pits at the end of 45 minutes of Free Practice 2. We finished the session back in 18th place. So Dennis Olsen riding high off the back of that first podium finish in the DTM at the Nürburgring. He takes the top of the times there with a 1:26.326, quickest lap of the day across the 2 sessions. Luca Stoltz was not far behind though, 27 thousandths of a second adrift in second. Thomas Preining rounds out the top 3. Mirko Bortolotti, who was quickest in Free Practice 1, or the championship leader, despite spending much of the session setting up, I think, for a longer run, put a quick lap in at the end to go 4th. Laurens Vanthoor was quick at the end to go 5th, with Sheldon van der Linde, Michael Grenier and Maro Engel, Arjun Miney and Kelvin van der Linde rounding out the top 10. Nico Muller leading the second group, and Marco Wittmann with a bit of head scratching to do, back in 20th place there. And Theo Overhaus on his debut weekend was in that session in 28th place, the 17-year-old. So that's it from Free Practice, and for Friday, qualifying at 10:05 local time tomorrow. We'll be on air 5 minutes before that to build up to all the action on the first of the race days here at the Nürburgring. From me, Chris Hartley and the team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.